The Legend of Herd Boy and Weaving Maid. Every year in China, a festival is celebrated on the 7th day of the 7th month by the lunar calendar, called the Double Seventh. Connected with it is a beautiful legend. It is said that in ancient times there was a young man known as Herd Boy. His parents had died and left him an orphan at an early age, and he lived with his elder brother and sister-in-law. The latter resented him bitterly, and often beat and scolded him. When Herd Boy reached the age of 16, his brother and sister-in-law expelled him from the house, with only an old ox as his inheritance. Herd Boy engaged in farming, the ox drawing the plow. One day, as the sun was setting behind the western hills, Herd Boy and the ox were plodding their weary way home, when the ox suddenly started to speak. It told Herd Boy that fairies would descend from heaven that very evening to play in a nearby river, and urged him to go there. Herd Boy was amazed, but curiosity compelled him to go to the river just as night was closing in. There, in the pitch-dark night, he seemed to see the forms of girls twinkling like stars. Fairies had indeed come down to earth. As each one descended, she doffed her winged garment and began to splash about and play in the water. Herd Boy, hiding in a clump of trees near the river, watched the fairies' graceful movements. He found the youngest fairy particularly attractive. Her smiling face moved Herd Boy's heart, and he instantly fell in love with her. On an impulse, he snatched up and hid her winged garment. Just before dawn, the fairies scrambled back onto the riverbank. Donning their winged robes, they flew back to heaven, all except the youngest, known as Weaving Maid, whose job was to make beautiful clouds in the sky. Unable to find her own clothes, she burst into tears. Herd Boy rushed out of the trees, handed to her her winged robe, and bashfully confessed his love for her. Weaving Maid, changing her tears into smiles, decided to stay with Herd Boy for a few days before returning to heaven. But the days turned into months, and Weaving Maid gradually came to love diligent, clever, and capable Herd Boy. She decided to marry him. 1 year later, their son and daughter were born. With Herd Boy farming and Weaving Maid weaving, together with their children, they led a happy life. Weaving Maid had been the most skillful weaver in heaven, and of course, the cloth she wove in her new life was the wonder of the village and famous for miles around. When the Lord of Heaven heard what had happened, he was exceedingly angry. He ordered the Queen Mother of the West to fetch Weaving Maid back. As Herd Boy watched his beloved Weaving Maid being forcibly taken away, he felt as though a knife had pierced his heart. But there was nothing he could do. The babies wailed loudly. Seeing this, the old ox shed one of his horns, which turned into a small boat floating in the air. Herd Boy took the two babies with him, got onto the boat, and soared up to heaven in pursuit of Weaving Maid. Just as they were catching up with Queen Mother, she took a hairpin from her hair and drew a magic line behind her, which turned into a raging river, known as the Milky Way. This barred the progress of Herd Boy. He and Weaving Maid could only gaze helplessly at each other across the chasm, still linked, however, in their hearts. At length their pure love moved the Lord of Heaven, and he gave permission for them to meet once a year on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month. On that day, countless numbers of magpies flocked to the Milky Way to form a bridge with their bodies so that Herd Boy and Weaving Maid can be reunited in the middle. This is the story of Herd Boy and Weaving Maid. From then on, girls in ancient China had great admiration for Weaving Maid's superior skill at weaving, as well as for her steadfast love. They prayed to her specially to give them needlework skills and good fortune. The Double Seventh gradually became a festival full of emotion for the Chinese people. The moral of this story: in ancient China, the pursuit of love and freedom continued without a break. The story of Herd Boy and Weaving Maid represents the people's yearning for perfect love, a harmonious family, and a free life. The steadfast love of Herd Boy and Weaving Maid has moved generation after generation.